Hello, everybody. All right. So, a happy Thursday to everybody. As of course, we're on the last day of our newscast portion of the week. You all know tomorrow we will be have Rick Piper with me as we will be looking at comics that went on sale in October 1939 tomorrow. From Fiction House. So, but anyways, so tonight, we'll do our, but as we're waiting for more people to come, let's see. I hope everybody's had a good week this week, and hopefully everybody's looking forward to the weekend and having all kinds of fun over the weekend. So, with that, I'm going to step away from the computer for a moment while we're waiting for more people to show up. I'll be right back. I'll put some music on while I'm gone. Back in a moment. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now. Come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you, pretending you got a sliver. And you're not fooling me, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know you got a mystery to solve, so Scooby-Doo, be ready for your act. Don't hold back. And Scooby-Doo, you're gonna have yourself a Scooby snack. That's a fact. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We're ready and ready and you're willing. And we can count on you, be Scooby-Doo. You know we'll catch that feeling. Casper, the friendly ghost, the friendliest ghost you know. He'll laugh and play hands all day. Anyways, okay, so we're coming up on 4 minutes here, so let me go over what's on. So, of course, we have our niche news segment. We're gonna be going over 3 articles from Bleeding Fool tonight. We're gonna be looking at stuff from Bleeding Fool, including a veteran DC artist who admits that he was happy to draw Superman no matter what the story was. Another story we'll be looking at is how ICBCA to distribute crowdfunded comic books to comic retailers. And there's a Harvard law professor who's actually decided to get into the comic creating, and they're writing a comic book about what if the January 6th, as they like to call it, insurrection succeeded. So, again, though, what's one man's insurrection is another man's revolution. So, anyways, we have that. We have some wrestling, wrestling wrap up to talk about a little later, including the unfortunate passing of a particular individual. We'll be talking about that a little later in the show. And of course, the This Day Needs History segment. As we're now past the 5 minute mark, I think it's a good time to get going on the show here. So here we go. Alrighty then. So all right. So here we go with the article with the first article we're going to go over tonight here. Veteran DC artist admits he was happy to draw Superman no matter the story. Article by Avi Green. This was published yesterday. CTV News interviewed veteran artist Tom Grummett at the Calgary Expo about his career, and it sounds like he was willing to do anything to achieve stardom. Some people might even argue if he was drawing stuff for some of the woke garbage, he might be willing to even sell his soul, right? CTV is Canadian television, I believe, so just so people know. Grummett figures landing Superman in the 90s was probably the first real hallmark moment. Okay, so at least he wasn't part of the woke stuff. Um, quote unquote, that was big, he said. The first time he met editor of the Superman line of comic book, he made his desire to draw Superman known. Any opportunity would do. A one and done yarn, a fill in tale, a backup story. I didn't quote, I didn't care what it was. I wanted to take a crack at drawing Superman, unquote, Grummett said. During Grummett's time in the Office of Steel, okay, he had a part in headline grabbing storylines, including killing off the lead character. So he was actually one of the guys they brought in to draw the Doomsday story, I guess. Bringing back four different characters in his place, one being Grummett's previously mentioned Superboy, resurrecting the original, marrying him to his main foil, and many, many more. Seriously, no pressure, but Grummett calls it a standout great time in a career full of them. Also, a time of great growth. Quote, I think I got better by leaps and bounds when I started working on Superman titles. Ha ha, he said. Leaps and bounds. Kind of a common phrasing from Superman mythos. Uh, Quote, we had four different creative teams. It wasn't a competition, but it was more like, quote, well, I have to be at least as good as the rest of these guys, in smaller quote. So I had something to strive for every single week. Quote, it made me work harder at it and get better, unquote. If he'd worked on the story where Cat Grant's son, Adam, was murdered by the Toymen, one must wonder what he thought of that, as much as anything else they were doing at the time. With their stable of characters, not the least being Hank Hall and Don Granger from Hawk and Dove, both turned into roadkill during Armageddon, just prior to the whole death and return of Superman event. Seriously, it's regrettable the guy was so desperate to work in the majors. He'd even be willing to work on an overrated event that was little different from several others brewed by editors at the time. It decidedly speaks of a lack of moral and or artistic. Yeah, I mean, depending upon what he worked on, but is Avi saying that the death of Superman storyline was something of a moral down point? I don't know, but anyways, I guess he believes it was an overrated event, but anyways, the writer here, it decidedly speak. Okay, yeah, we read that already. Artistic judgment that's long since brought down both DC and Marvel, and even today things haven't recovered in an era where PC's taken over. If I were in Grummet's career, I wouldn't be so desperate to get into the majors if such a downer as the 92-93 event were all I was offered based on where I went in the end, serving in addition as lead in to Emerald Twilight. I guess Avi wasn't a big fan of the Doomsday story. I guess I had to take a guess by the commentary here. Hmm. I'll get ready to continue on here then. A lot of comic book drawing is done digitally now, leaving no physical product behind. No necessarily not necessarily better, not necessarily worse, just different, Grummett says. And so much in the comic book industry is from how you make them to how you get to make them. The way Grummett broke in, he's not even sure that would work anymore. But he's also not sure it matters. Of course not, if you consider the dire artistic state of the industry in the mainstream. For one, anybody who takes an assignment from DC Marvel that could involve uh, denigrating the creations clearly lacks any moral integrity. Hmm. Hmm. Like I could agree with Avi's point with what's going on present day. I don't know though if he's trying to link like what's going on present day with what happened back in 92, 93 during the Doomsday and Death of Superman story arc. Quote, I'm asked, in smaller quotes, what advice do you have for a younger artist? And I have not got a clue what to tell them, unquote, he said. Quote, back when I broke in, there were certain pathways you could take to get there, and I don't know what those are now, unquote. Quote, these days, with those things, young artists don't necessarily need to work for DC or Marvel to find an audience, which is true. I mean, there's a lot going on the indie comic scene with with not just some of the more controversial ones like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, but also with newly established Fund My Comic as well. Um, let's see. Quote, they can find that audience on their own on various different platforms. Yes, which was what we just mentioned. Unquote. All right. Some common sense for a change. Too bad Grummett wouldn't tell whether he's reevaluated his run on Superman at the time the overrated event took place, and whether he'd erred in taking the job at all costs, even if it meant participating in something that'd degrade everything the Man of Steel is all about. Grummett is correct that new artists and writers don't need to work for the Pig 2 anymore. But that's based on the dismal artistic state they're now in, not because it's an honor to get a job working on such famous creations. You could surely make similar points about Spider-Man's Clone Saga coming as it did just 2 years after Death and Return of Superman. Why should anyone who really appreciates Spidey and Mary Jane Watson want to work on a tale that wound up misusing them and is embarrassingly bad? Based on the scene where Peter Parker assaulted Ben Riley, and when MJ tried to stop him, he unintentionally injured her. If a minor cast member like Betty Brant wound up in such a demeaning situation, that'd be objectionable too. Hmm. And that's why it's terrible. It's a terrible shame Grummett didn't have the moral sense needed to judge whether it's worth becoming famous for illustrating a story that did more harm than good to Superman. Um, Saw a youngster like Adam Grant kick the bucket, and again served as lead into Emerald Twilight. In my opinion, creators who don't resist these corporate tinkerings are only furthering the problem, and today we've long since seen the results. Yeah, but again, I don't. I guess that's Avi's opinion that the Death and Return of Superman storyline is overrated, but I know there are a lot of people who speak highly of it too. So I mean, but and it's been, and of course it's been, given its own animated adaptation too. So anyways, with through various cartoons, not just an episode of Justice League, for example, but also I think it even got its own movie. So anyways, before we get started on this, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment, so I'll be right back. I'll be right. All right, sorry about that. I'm back now. So, okay, it looks like hello. Hopefully, having a good day. If you haven't already, if you can, of course, help me out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people on here. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to ask questions or comment, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that, let's go ahead and take a look at this next story. Let's see. And this one's actually by Chris Braley here. Let's see. Yeah, we're 20 minutes into this. Okay. ICBCA to distribute crowd-funded comic books to comic retailers. Article by Chris Bray published earlier today. ICBCA, which is the Independent Comic Book Creators Association. All right, so the Independent Comic Book Creators Association, or ICBCA, is a new cooperative launching on July 4th, 2023, Independence Day this year, basically. That is designed to bridge the gap between creators and retailers, allowing comics that were previously unavailable to comic shops to make their way into the direct market. Founded by comics creators Blake Seals and Phil Avelli, ICBCA will provide printing and distribution services for creators and for retailers. They will offer a catalog, ordering infrastructure, and other support. Retailers in the U.S. and Canada will receive the ICBCA's quarterly catalog, Fanfare, in both print and digital format, and can order from that with discounts up to 55% off the cover price. There is a returns program for unsold copies, and there is no minimum order. All items will have barcodes to simplify ordering and inventory, and no comic will be solicited in Fanfare until it is complete. Each issue of Fanfare will feature 3 months of upcoming releases, with the first month's releases shipping 2 or 3 weeks after the order deadlines, and subsequent months about 4 weeks after that. These releases will be denoted, quote, first ICBCA edition, unquote, and ICBCA will not sell any of its editions to the public until they have been available to retailers for at least 2 weeks. Seals and Avelli told ICB2, which I believe is a site that keeps track of sales numbers as well, because I think Yellow Flashers utilize that in talking about some of the sales numbers for DC and Marvel. Once the back catalog is established, print-on-demand backlist items will be available within 2 or 3 weeks of ordering. Retailers who want to participate can register with ICBCA and will be designated, quote, indie comics ambassadors, unquote. ICBCA will offer them free swag and promotional opportunities. All retailers, whether they register or not, will receive print and digital editions of Fanfare. All right, let's see if you guys are saying anything yet. Nope. Feel free, as I said, to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Creators will pay a monthly membership fee to tap into the infrastructure of ICBCA. Into the infrastructure ICBA will set up for printing, soliciting, and distributing their comics, as well as creating promotional materials and convention signage. There is no fee for retailers to participate. Similar vendors, such as Comic Distro, founded by Austin Otske in 2021, also offers print on demand and distribution services. But it is designed as a service rather than a co op and has no membership component. Quote, offering new creators the opportunity and excitement that we personally experienced when entering the comics community decades ago is important to us, uh, unquote, Seal said in a statement accompanying the announcement. Quote, there is a wellspring of diverse authors and artists out there right now making amazing comics. And we are honored to help share these new voices with retailers and readers. Creators can register for membership on ICBCA website. The Independent Comic Book Creators Association officially launches July 4th, quote, Independence Day, unquote. For more information, visit icba.net. So there we go with that one. Yeah, okay. Independent, yeah, okay. Interesting way to put it. Independence Day. Um, yeah, so. Hmm, hmm. Alrighty then. So let's move on to the next article then. Get ready to move on to the next article. It's kind of an interesting one that the headline at least will grab your attention. See if anybody's saying anything yet. Nope. All right. Let's see. All right. So we're making good time. It looks like. All right. So professor creates cringe comic. Quote. What if the January 6th, in smaller quotes, insurrection succeeded? Unquote. Dave Huber, article by Dave Huber, published today. It was dubbed the greatest threat to American democracy since the Civil War. It was more devastating than September 11th, 2001. So those on the right or those on the left. So they're saying here that those on the left were saying that the Civil War was a threat to American democracy. Civil War is what ended slavery. So, um, more devastating than September 11th, 2001. They were talking about January 6th, 2021, of course. And of course, the comparisons are ludicrous. I mean, heck, parentheses, I mean, heck, why not go further? How about quote, how about January 6th was more destructive than the Tsar bombs, unquote, or January 6th was on par with the Big Bang. Yeah, a little hyperbole going on there, obviously. While most of the hyperbole came and comes from politicians, the academic set certainly couldn't be left out. It claimed the Capitol storming was about, quote unquote, protecting a racist order, a quote case study in white privilege, unquote. Said Donald Trump could even be charged with manslaughter. Even though, if anybody happened to see any of the clips or see, you know, the town hall meeting, the CNN town hall meeting, like a couple weeks ago, and he was being confronted about that by Caitlin Collins, you would have seen he had receipts and he showed her the receipts where he is specifically saying the day before and the day of protest peacefully. So, it's a common thing it's something that Saul Alinsky was kind of put out there. Basically, the idea is look in the mirror, see the evils you do, and then point at the other guy and accuse him of those evils. That's classic Alinsky right there. Classic radicalism right there. So now a Harvard law professor is doing his very best to keep that January 6th narrative alive and even take it up a notch or two. Yes, the left is really trying to do this the left is basically trying to do everything they can to keep Donald Trump from being president again. It's a real strong chance he's going to win the nomination, and if he can get the vote out in the Midwest, he should be our 47th president. So he should be able to pull off what Grover the only other person, the one thing that only one other person, Grover Cleveland, did, which was serve 2 non-consecutive terms. Alan Jenkins, who unsurprisingly teaches classes on, quote, race and the law, unquote, and founded a, quote, social justice communication lab, unquote, has co-authored a, quote unquote, what if style graphic novel about the 1/6 in smaller quotes here, in quotes here, insurrection being successful. Her creatively titled 1/6, a graphic novel, quote unquote, Jenkins, along with New York Times Gan Golan and artist Will Rosado, shows, quote, how close we came to authoritarian rule and demonstrate how strategic disinformation, white supremacy, and cynical political ambition convinced millions of ordinary Americans to reject cherished constitutional values and support violent sedition. I've got a different theory on that, obviously, but but I'm not going to go into that too much. I'm just going to report on what's being said here. I'm not going to get too much into my own commentary. Hopefully not, anyways. But just to remind everybody, what is one person's insurrection, sedition, is another's revolution. All right. Naturally, CNN was thrilled to have Jenkins on late last week to talk about it. And how cute was this? Copies of the book were sent to, quote, more than 150 members of Congress this week who denied the 2020 election results, confronting them with the gravity of their effort to undermine our democracy by refusing to certify the election of Joe Biden, unquote. Well, first off, technically we're not a democracy. We're a representative republic. Okay? It would take too much time and effort with as many people as we have to be a democracy. A true democracy would, in essence, mean we'd all have to be living in Washington, D.C. to be voting on every single issue. Okay? What our country actually is a representative republic in which we elect people to represent our interest, our values and interests in Washington in making laws. So, a copy was sent to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who, according to the creators, quote, has acted to ban books with which he disagrees, unquote. Parentheses. Just don't be racist and ask the creators about the numerous. Just don't be racist and ask the numerous creators about the numerous Democrats who have questioned election results when a Republican has won the presidency, including Trump, and how Democrats and the current administration colluded with social media companies to ban speech with which they disagreed, which did happen as well, parentheses. Gasped in horror at the Capitol dome draped in a Trump banner, quote unquote, scream in disgust at Confederate flags flying not only on the Capitol, but also at the Lincoln Memorial. And what a lot of people tend to forget was Lincoln was the guy who actually helped to defeat the Confederate States of America. He was so. Jenkins said, quote, there's a long tradition of comic book creators taking on real-world social issues, especially fascism and white supremacy. Captain America's first appearance was socking Adolf Hitler in the jaw. Well, yeah, because it, and in parentheses here, even the author goes, several months before U.S. entered World War II, Superman fought Ku Klux Klan in the 40s, as did the Black Panther and other superheroes after him. Of course, what he's forgetting here is that when a lot of these characters were active at the time of World War II, of course, Captain America was going to be, taking on Adolf Hitler. Of course, Superman was going to be taking on Adolf Hitler at the time because you know that's who they were dealing with. Seems natural that our story's heroes are fighting modern day extremism, bigotry, and political violence. Um, get it? Get it? Hitler, the KKK, and now January 6th. Captain America also fought communism post World War II and into the 1950s. However, since superhero comics weren't popular in the 50s, Cap's adventures that decade were canceled. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby brought the hero back in 1964 to join the Avengers, explaining that at the very end of World War II, he'd been thrown into an ice floe and frozen. But then, how to explain Cap's adventures against the commies in the 1950s? In the early 70s, writer Steve Englehart explained it all in a 3-issue arc, which showed the 1950s Cap actually was an academic named William Burnside. Burnside had stumbled upon the Nazis' attempt at creating the same super soldier serum that made Steve Rogers Captain America. All right, so there we go with that. That's all of the articles we will do tonight, of course. 38 minutes. So it's probably a good time to start to move on to the next portion, the wrestling wrap up. So we'll go over some, of course, WWE and AEW news. Let's take care of something here real quick. Right, the first thing I must report on, of course, is some very sad longtime wrestling fans, those who particularly those who are wrestling fans back in the 70s and 80s, as yesterday, a former WWF World Heavyweight Champion, superstar Billy Graham, who was the first heel to have a significant title reign with that title. Of course, he was the third heel champion. He was the actually, I'm sorry. He was technically, I guess, the fourth heel champion because the first champion was Buddy Rod. So there's San Martino, Koloff, um, Koloff. Morales, Stasiak, San Martino, and so he was technically 7th overall. So he was the 4th heel champion in the company's history, and the 7th overall. He held the title for about a year from 1977 to 78 before he had defeated Bruno Sammartino and then lost the title in 78 to Bob Backlund. Superstar Billy Graham had succumbed to he had recently been put into he'd been put on life support as he had been suffering through a number of illnesses that many people have said have been attributed to his steroid use. Well, as of yesterday, superstar Billy Graham, whose real name Wayne Coleman, passed away. He passed away yesterday from multiple medical issues. Let me just see something here. Yeah, so born Eldridge Wayne Coleman. He was 79 years old. Passed away yesterday, again, due to multiple medical issues he'd been suffering. So, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to just give a moment of silence to superstar Billy Graham. And he passed away yesterday at the age of 79. All right. So with that, and I'm sure we'll probably see, on tomorrow, maybe. Well, they might put something in the editorial tomorrow. For SmackDown, we'll probably also see something on Monday Night Raw for that. Now, in regards to some AEW news, of course, last night's Dynamite saw, in the opening match, Darby Allin and AEW International Champion Orange Cassidy defeat Big Bill and Lee Moriarty. A pretty solid opening match there. Sammy Guevara defeated Exodus Prime 29 seconds. Now, originally this was going to be a 6-woman or trio match, pitting all 3 members of the Outcast, Saraya, Ruby Soho, and Toni Storm against AEW Women's Champion Jamie Hayter, Dr. Britt Baker, and Hikaru Shida, but Jamie Hayter was taken out of the match, was pulled from the match. Now, there's been some speculation as to why. Some people have wondered if she's injured. Of course, she's been kayfabe injured, having her arm busted by Toni Storm in the attack from a couple weeks ago. But some are saying that maybe they just want to take her off TV for a couple weeks, so she'll be prepared, because apparently she's signed to take on Tony to defend the AEW World Women's Title against Toni Storm at Double or Nothing on Sunday, the 21st. So as Jamie Hayter was pulled from the match, Saraya was pulled from it as well, to make it a tag team match in which Ruby Soho and Toni Storm, taking advantage of the numbers game with Saraya, defeated Dr. Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida. Roderick Strong defeated Chris Jericho in the Falls Count Anywhere match. Jack Perry had defeated Roosh in a singles match. After the match, Roosh, along with Preston Vance and Jose the assistant, tried to pile on Jack Perry, only for him to be saved by Darby Allin and and Sammy Guevara, who have all indicated that they all respect each other. They may not necessarily like each other, they do respect each other. The only person they don't respect is, of course, MJF. And then Jay White defeated Ricky Starks in a singles match via DQ. So that's all that happened. Um, that's all that happened on. And in other news now, so, I think something must be going on now again with AEW and CM Punk, as now whether or not this is just they're just playing up kayfabe or whatever or for real, but apparently now Warner Brothers Discovery and AEW have basically said that no, CM Punk is not going to be on Collision, which of course last night Tony Khan did announce that Collision would be premiering on Saturday, June 17th. So about a month from now. AW will be debuting its latest show, Collision. Now, initially, Collision was going to be kind of a show. One of the things they had talked about was having Punk on there with wrestlers who were willing to work with him. But now that may not necessarily be, now even though he's been suspended and hasn't been active in AEW, he's been active on social media continuing to stir the pot. There are people who may not necessarily be happy about that. Also, of course, announced last night on Dynamite, signed for the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, Anarchy in Arena, which is a kind of a AEW's take on the old War Games idea from WCW, in which on one side you had the Blackpool Combat Club, all 4 members of Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta, taking on the members of the Elite of Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, and the returning Hangman Adam Page from injury. So now that's all heating up. And with that, now that's all the wrestling news I have for you for the time being. So now today being Thursday, May 18th, 2023, go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history. History! Let me just 1948, 1973, and then 2003. All right. So, anyways, without any further ado, let's take a look back at this day in each history. All right. First off, we're going to head back 75 years ago, as on this date, 75 years ago today, the 25th issue of Fighting Yank from Standard went on sale on this date back in 1948. Of course, obviously, another World War II based comic. Sold for 10 cents, and had 48 pages. So on this date, 48 or 75 years ago today, back in 1948, 25th issue of Fighting Yank went on sale on this date in. Actually, it might have been more of a World War, not a World War II, but a Revolutionary War era type story. So with that, let's continue on, going on to the next piece of niche history here. As we reported on a death earlier, I'd also like to wish a happy birthday to somebody. Like to wish a happy 50th birthday to former WCW wrestler Kaz Hayashi. Kaz Hayashi turns 50 today. Of course, he was part of the Young Dragon stable in the late 90s and like 99, 2000 birthday. He also wrestled for Kaientai over in Japan. So happy 50th birthday to Kaz Hayashi. Um, and now we're moving ahead to 2003, as on this date 20 years ago today, a couple of things happened actually. Um, on this date 20 years ago today, Paramount Pictures released Charlotte's Web 2, Wilbur's Great Adventure, which kind of fell short critically. You know, it really wasn't as big. It obviously did not have the same success that the original Charlotte's Web movie, the 1973 Charlotte's Web movie, did. Of course, both based on E.B. White's Charlotte's Web children's novel. This one was a direct to video animated musical adventure film. Um, was considered critically panned, but it was produced by Paramount Pictures along with Universal Cartoon Studios and Nickelodeon. So, on this date 20 years ago today, Charlotte's Web 2 was released into theaters. Also, on this date 20 years ago, as 2003 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. As also on this date, um, 20 years ago, or today, at the Cannes Film Festival Toei Animation's Interstellar 5555, the story of the secret star system, premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. It was an animated musical science fiction film. So on this date, 20 years ago as well, the Interstellar 5555, the story of the secret star system, premiered at the Cannes Film Festival on this date 20 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody had enjoyed the content tonight. Don't forget, we'll be back here tomorrow night with Rick Piper as my co-host. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale back in October of 1939. Went on sale from this week. We'll be focusing in on Fiction House. We'll be featuring, of course, features such as Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, as well as the weird stories of the supernatural with Dr. Hayward. And then we'll also be looking at Jungle Comics #1. It has a number of jungle heroes in it. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.